The final session of the day was focused specifically on the council itself, with reflections from past CTBUH Chairman and presentations from the 2009 Best Tall Building Award winners. 2009 marked the CTBUH's 40th anniversary since its founding in 1969. This was celebrated at the conference with a special panel session in which 6 past CTBUH leaders presented their reflections on their experiences with the council. A common thread across their presentations was the fond memory of CTBUH founder Lynn S. Beedle. First to speak was Leslie Robertson of Leslie Robertson Associates, who served as CTBUH Chairman from 1985 to 1990.
Indeed, my memory focuses on but just one central remembrance. That's Professor Lynn S. Beedle. Lynn created the council and did so from nothing more than his own dreams, his own energies, and he dragged us, often kicking and screaming, into the far corners of the world, thus providing a sort of technological education or transference of information about tall buildings.
Charles de Benedinis shared his early memories of the council, including one of the late Fosler Khan, who was CTBUH Chairman from 1979 to 1982.
Dr. Beedle's energetic leadership continued for 30 years until 1999. Many chairmen served the council and are listed elsewhere, but I must make mention of Dr. Faz Khan, who died much too young, soon after serving as chairman from 1979 to 1982. I will always remember the ovation he received in his sentimental closing at one of the 5-year council meetings in New York City at the end of his tenure.
Gilberto Doval, past chairman from 1993 to 1996, shared an image from the top of the Sears Tower, recently after it had controversially lost its title as the world's tallest building, thanks to a council ruling.
This photo has been done at the top of Sears Towers, just after I passed the gravel to Shankar Nair. By that time, Chicago community was disappointed with the fact that Petronas Tower has surpassed the height of Sears Towers with those pinnacles, and they could not agree with that.
Shankar Nair explained how he had seen the council grow beyond just a structural engineering group that it had started as.
And by that time, the council had been transformed into much more than just a structural engineering group. That's what it started as, but it became much more, and it was supposed to be. In fact, the tall building focus had been broadened to include not just the building itself, but also the habitat, the whole environment in which the building existed. And it had become recognized as an international and multidisciplinary group. In fact, it was the only international multidisciplinary group involved with tall buildings in the world.
Ron Klemenczyk became chairman of the council just after the events of 9/11, and he shared with the group the story of what sparked him and the council into action at a time when the appropriateness of tall buildings was called into question.
One of the fond memories I had was after 9/11, a couple of days after 9/11, I had just taken on the chairmanship, as Shankar had pointed out. Of course, there's all the press going on, and my phone rings, and it's Nadine Post from ENR. And she reminds me, "You're the chairman of the Council on Tall Buildings. What are you going to do?" And I was so taken back by that. What am I going to do? What are we going to do as the council? And it was that phone call that inspired a whole bunch of activity in the ensuing months, leading to many meetings and ultimately some publications that the council put out.
Finally, David Scott spoke in the final hours of his term as chairman. He reflected on the growth the council has seen during his term and shared the news of a recent change in the CTBUH's height criteria for measuring tall buildings.
And what a great organization it is. Yesterday, we made the Trump Tower 26 feet taller. Although not formally and officially yet, but Peter Weissmantel and the Height Committee agreed the wordings of what the new base of the building should be. And as soon as we can agree what the top of the building should be, we will know how tall the building is.
David brought the panel session to a close by inviting his successor, Professor Sangdae Kim of Korea University, onto the stage. Professor Kim was named the new chairman later that evening at the conference dinner. Focus then changed to the 2009 CTBUH Award winners. The Lynn S. Beedle Lifetime Achivement winner was John Portman. He spoke on his career with a unique perspective as both an architect and a developer.
And then it hit me that really what architecture is all about, what development's all about, what building's all about, whether they're short or tall, is really about people. And I began trying to understand how people respond to environmental circumstances and how you could make things happen and put them together in such a way that it was a greater contribution than the building itself. The current momentum surrounding tall buildings is mostly about the thing itself. There's nothing wrong with that because I'm very interested in that. But the thing is a form, and it has a structure, and it has a function. And we can build it. That's not the question. But can we make it a living community? Can we make it function? Yes. But it takes more than function to make a life. The social aspects and needs of human beings at the life level must always be part of our concern, if not our major concern.
Lastly, the 4 regional Best Tall Building winners were presented. The Middle East and Africa winner, Tornado Tower, was presented by Frank Zabel of Seco Consultants. The Americas winner, Manitoba Hydro Place, was presented by Bruce Kuwabara of KPMB Architects. The Asia and Australasia winner, Linked Hybrid, was presented by Stephen Hall of Stephen Hall Architects. And the Europe winner, the Broadgate Tower, was presented by Timothy Pohl of SOM.
The design team has placed emphasis on the exceptional location of the site and thus designed a building unique in design and suitable for the competing market in Doha. Resembling a whirlwind in the desert, Tornado Tower is a dynamic and fascinating spectacle in the skyline of Doha. The Islamic geometric pattern of the structural shell reflect the modern approach of Doha to the future architecture of the city.
A great diagram that we finally got to really understand what we're doing. We have decoupled heating and cooling from ventilation. It's a concrete high-rise building. We have the largest geothermal application in the country, 280 holes drilled to 400 feet depth at 15-foot centers under an urban site. And there are 1-inch diameter pipes tubes in the concrete, 10-inch concrete slabs. And the slabs are kept at 20 degrees Celsius year-round, no matter whether it's minus 30 or plus 30. We have 100% natural ventilation coming in because of the south prevailing winds into those atriums. It stratifies. We have rises. We have 100% raised floor, so it's displacement ventilation. And we have a very high performance building envelope. We have windows that open. Windows that open. We have basically buffer walls on the west face and the east face, and everywhere else it's triple glazed primarily. And then you see the solar chimney, which drives the ventilation system. So air comes into the atriums. Sometimes it's preheated if it's minus 20. It goes into the raised floors, it stratifies, it hits bodies, it warms up, and is drawn across the building to the solar chimney. We have a passive preheat function in the top of the chimney, which is basically a whole grouping of hollow section steel tubes with sand in them. That's passive preheating. They're painted black. Next. And it becomes the icon. So when people were talking about spires and heights, ours really drives the environmental systems of the building besides being the tallest part of the building. Next. Here's our performance. That buildings, we're shooting for a 60% reduction in energy consumption from the Model National Energy Code building standard, and we're actually achieving the target. We're actually achieving it in a way that will drive our energy usage down below 90 kilowatt hours per square meter per year, when most buildings in Winnipeg and in around most of North America are like 500, 600 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. I mean, you know, this is really big and really green.
And basically, the premise is that Beijing is a city that was once horizontal, and in 1920, around 1949, Mao lifted the restriction that you couldn't build higher than the Forbidden City. That means you could start building towers. But Beijing is becoming a city of point towers, and many of them are gated communities. And this is wrong, we feel, and we want to make some kind of horizontal city that's much more socially connected and socially defining space. That's a key core drive. Next. So this was the first sketch, and that is the idea of on the street, shops, and a secondary level, maybe offices, and a third level. So this is very different than the problem of, let's say, Minneapolis and Skybridges. There's so much density in Beijing that you can have plenty of shops on the street, and our idea of porosity of the street is very important. But you could also have in the air. It's not to take away the activity on the street. In fact, we feel very strongly urbanistically the street activity is key. Next. So there you see the model, you see the bridges that are connecting the 8 towers.
The section here is showing that the tower really begins to describe one of the other major constraints, and that is the fact that the entire tower, almost the entire tower, is built over the raft, which means it doesn't have a basement. There's no place to bring things down. As the raft was built, it was designed to support a 13-story building. However, after it was constructed, we came up with the idea of putting a tower on there, and the challenge was really finding a way to take all the load which the raft was designed to take and move that somewhere else. And there and by came the idea of this transfer structure, which bypassed the raft entirely underneath the tower footprint and gave rise to the center galleria space between the tower and the low-rise building. In between the two buildings is a large public space. Again, a lot of care was taken to give public space back to the city. The site itself is about 2.5 acres. More than half of that site was given back to the city as a means of public space. It also created a vital link from the transportation hub of Liverpool Street Station to the emerging districts of Shoreditch to the north.